Hello, Billy the Artist here, back with another how to draw video, and today we are doing Sirius Black. At last, yes, we're back with another Harry Potter one, and we're doing our Sirius, which will be good fun. We're doing the image from his kind of wanted poster. Now, we will do in the future the direct wanted poster as well. But before we go any further, please do like and subscribe, tick the bell to be notified when new how to draw videos turn up. And please do share them with your friends. It's fantastic, as in a previous video we crossed 30,000 subscribers, so it's great to help so many of you draw. But in the Harry Potter playlist last month, in the month of April, we did 5 Harry Potter characters. You were asking for Draco and Snape and Voldemort and an old Dumbledore. And there he is, and there's the sorting hat on top of Harry Potter's head. Now again, they are all in the How to Draw Harry Potter playlist. Do check that out. Link is in the cards and in the description for all of those. That will be absolutely fantastic if you share them. There will be lots more videos coming in the future. I am aiming to do one Harry Potter every single week. And I keep sharing this in the comments, and it's fantastic to see so many people enjoying the Harry Potter universe. But I've also got so many others that I want to do, and there are things like, say, just check out the portraits playlist. I did the SAS Who Dares Wins fellas. There is Ariana Grande on there. There is also Billie Eilish. So there's lots on there to do. Plus, in the normal How to Draw playlist, there is the beginners stuff, which shows you basics, covering cartoon characters, all kinds of stuff. Toy Story, The Simpsons, The Incredibles, Secret Life of Pets, Inside Out. It's just been great. Please do use the hashtag Drawing with Billy. People have been sharing with me their drawings on social media. Again, absolutely fantastic. But do please like and subscribe, because there is going to be so much more, and I'm going to be doing more and more. Now again, I do use the trusty 2B pencil, but I will be doing other stuff as well, like the Harry Potter logos that I did for the Hogwarts house, the houses of Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, and I also did the Ollivander's One Shop. But I'm going to be doing more and more of those kinds of logo type badge videos as well. But there's just so much to do. Anyway, I am just plodding through as quickly as I can while still doing live as we are. So we will now get down to doing Sirius Black. Now, this is an A4 piece of paper that we are working on. It is... Oh, Draco just nearly disappeared. Let's just move those out of the way. And if there is a lot of ambient noise, I do have to have my window open slightly. We've got all the birds nesting around, which is lovely. But everyone who is working from home, you might hear chainsaws, drills, grinders, people hammering and banging, people playing football, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, any ambient noise in the background, it just adds, which is fantastic. Anyway, we are on this A4 piece of paper, and it is divided into 2 centimetre squares. Check out the link in the cards to a little video just over 20 minutes long that shows me laying down the grids that I use, not just this 2 centimetre one, but also the other grids and bits and pieces. Check out the banner. All the dimensions for all of these markings all the way across are in that banner there right now. Now, I've written these down in millimetres. Some people have been leaving comments saying, why not centimetres? Because rulers are in millimetres, and it's 210 millimetres across, that's 21 centimetres. 297 millimetres down, that's 29.7 centimetres. But it just means, because the ruler that I use, here it is, it's got all the increments are in millimetres, so you can see I've got the centimetres across, but there's the millimetres, so I put that on there. I can see 5 millimetres, 25 millimetres, 45, 65, 85, 105, that's the centre line, 125, 145, 165, 185, and 205 millimetres. So millimetres and centimetres are the same, it's just breaking the increments down into smaller measurements. And again, down the side, when I do the other grid, we've got 52.5 millimeters or 5.25 centimeters. It's just easy to use the millimeters, so that's why I use those. But we use this grid to help make drawing simple. Check out the banner, How to Draw Anything, Part 1. That's the Absolute Basics video posted over 6 years ago, and it's helped lots and lots of people break the drawings down into simple shapes. Anyway, now we're going to draw Sirius, and we're going to get in. I've got the trusty 2B pencil. That's quite a new one, actually. Do bear in mind, I also have this pencil extender. I've managed, this one's really got down. I can't get that in the, can't even get a sharp point on it. That'll be filling in something soon. That's another 2B pencil. That's a bit smaller. And again, that will be being used in that pencil extender. Get more life out of your pencils. So I am going to use the 2B pencil on drawing Sirius. Now, I'm going to start on the 105 line. And you can see that the top of his head, I'm just going to put a mark coming down halfway in that square between the 5 and 25 on the horizontal. Now, we've got lots of space, and this is the 3/4 body image, but it's going to be quite a nice drawing because it's soft. So, you know, we've got no highlights in his eyes, but that's the very top of his head. And the reason I use these shapes is it helps to lay a foundation down for your drawing, and then you can build on with a detail line and actually grow and develop the image. So now what I'm going to do is, we can see we've got a bit of a rectangle, and it comes down through the 125 line, and this is where his hair, his big kind of bedraggled hair, comes down. Now from the 65 line down and past the 125 line, we've got a rectangle there, and that's the side of his hair. Now here, right at the top, we've got an oval of light, and that just comes down underneath the 45. And that's the oval of light on his hair. Now, again, we've got this straggle of hair coming down, and I've got a bit of a triangle going on there, and then we've got another rectangle. So from the 45, you can see his hair kind of comes out and over, but it's very wavy, but that'll come down later, and we've got to come down under the 105. And then up inside the 65. So we've got this rectangle, but then inside there we've got a triangle, and that comes down below the 85. And then right down on the 105 line, coming down to just below the 105 horizontal, we've got a little triangle for the bottom of his nose, and then a triangle there for the top of his nose. And you can see you've just got a nose shape straight away. Now his eye is in that rectangle there. I'm now going to put on a rectangle for his right eye, just indicating with a little circle where his pupil will be, and I'm just kind of putting a little eye shape, a little rugby ball oval shape for where his eye will be. But we've got this fantastic shadow that's going to be his eyes, and you can see here we've got a C shape, a very sharp C, a point, like a bracketed point, and the same here. And then you've got this bag underneath his eye, which is just, you've got a triangle there. Now again, if we carry this one over, you can see here we've got another little triangle shape there. Now coming down off his nose, we've got the creases off his mouth, or from his nose down to the side of his mouth, and we want a rectangle. They're just diagonal lines, and then we want a rectangle, which is his top moustache over above his top lip. Then just a nice semicircle shape for his bottom lip. We've got a little rectangle for that shadow, and you can see his chin comes to just above, it's about a third, just above the halfway line. So I'm just putting that mark in, and then we can curve that around. It's got a nice simple shape. Now here we've got the side of his head like we've got on this side, and we're just using simple shapes. So now I'm going to come down, and you've got his left hand. Now the top of his left hand is above the 165 line on this side, and it's also on the 165 coming down. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle, and that comes down underneath the 185 line, and that's the knuckles on the top of his hand. Then inside there we've got a little rectangle. Then we want a little curved shape. You can see that's a bit like a D there, but it goes into this shadow where underneath his hand. But we now just need to draw a triangle there, and then coming down we've got a straight line that comes down through the 245 line. So we've got a little triangle, coming down off that triangle. We've got a little straight line, and then we want another triangle there, and that's the bottom of his elbow. And then you can bring a line down for the bottom of his body. Now from his arm, we've got, very simply, there's a rectangle going up. But now we've got the actual prison sign that is going to be a rectangle in between. What we're going to do is right hand. Again, simple shapes. Now we're just putting in, like we did on this side, just a full rectangle. And that goes over from inside the 45 line to just over the 65 line. And then right on the 45 vertical line, we've got a little rectangle for his hand coming down. Now, coming off his cuff, and it kind of goes through the 225/25 line, you can see there we've got a triangle of light on that shadow. And then outside we've got, there's a triangle. Now imagine if you bring the shadow line up of his left arm, that builds up where inside his body, and then you've got the edge of his shirt. I'm just drawing a line straight down, but you can see that that does go out at a little angle. Now we now need to come up to his shoulder, and that's up by the 145 line. So we can use these grid lines as well as guides to help. And so within that 25, you've got a triangle there all the way down, and that's his arm. And then up to the top of his shoulder, we can draw another triangle. His collar here that comes across the 65 line. You've got another triangle, and then we can just slightly curve the top of that. Now on this side we've got another triangle for his collar on his left hand side, and then we can just, you can see there's another triangle. Now the top of his hair, I'm just going to draw that, connect those lines up as well. Now his neck inside, it's all inside shadow, so we don't really need to indicate too much, but I'm just going to put a little couple of lines in there that indicate where his actual neck is. Now coming above the 145 line, we have got the top of the Azkaban prison number board. and that goes up above and it comes across and it's just to the right of the 45. Now there you've got that line, because the board is obviously a rectangle but it's slightly angled, so you're just using those reference points to help you. And then obviously you've got that line that goes underneath, so that's got to be parallel. So you've got there a nice long rectangle, and then you can obviously bring that down to where the hand is, and then we've got the line underneath his hands that's below the 205. It's got to be angled in the same way as the top. So you imagine, like, if you drew all the way down, and you can see that it's past the 165, just past the 165 line. So if you draw that line down for that rectangle, that's going to come down, and you can see how it goes through his hand and comes out underneath. And then you need to draw that line across into the shadow over here, parallel to those top lines. You imagine that comes down, that's going to go there. Now from the top of the knuckle here, coming across to the top of the knuckle here, again I'm going to draw a line all the way across. It's just a construction line, parallel with the top. Now underneath the 185 line, by his left hand, just underneath, is where the bottom of these digit spaces are. And I'm going to draw the line all the way across again, parallel with those upper lines. So there you've got your rectangle. Now underneath that we've got these two more little boards. You can see it's just above the 205 line, but it comes through the 65 vertical. So I'm going to draw that line going over, and then underneath this little rectangle line we've got the top of those, and you can see where just past the line that's going to go. And again, we're just putting shapes down nice and quickly. Now we've got 5 markers, and obviously the number 3 is in the central one, but because of the grid lines it helps us to actually place them much more accurately. But we've got the top and the bottom lines, so you can just come inside and you can see you've got a little bit of a square there, and that's going to give you the point to go up. And again, it's got to be slightly angled, it's not vertical like those lines. And you got the same kind of shape with the whole the corner of the 9 square, the 9 rectangle. So I'm drawing that line down there, and then we can just put in the line for the number 3, and then we can come over and we can fill that kind of, it looks like a bird's foot, doesn't it, to the Y with the prong going up. And then you can see, so these are about the same size and shape, and then we can do the one with the kind of, well, it looks like the side of an X. And then the 9, you can see how the top part of it here is about through the centre line. And then we've got that final one, which has got the, looks like the edge of a 0. So anyway, we can now indicate the lines for those 2 little rectangles underneath. They've got those other runes in. So that's given us a lot of very simple basic shapes. Now I'm just going to put in quickly, there's a little rectangle, then we've got another little rectangle for the knuckle and where that curves under, then the second finger above, I'm indicating that rectangle, And then we've got a rectangle for the third finger as that bends around, and then we've got the rectangle for the top, and then the top finger, the first finger, goes up and then goes out to the knuckle. Again, just putting some simple shapes in. Now we're going to do the same on this side. So we've got the first finger, there's a little rectangle, and that just curves down a little bit. The second finger, same thing. Rectangle going through that square, little rectangle at the front where the finger bends down. Third finger, rectangle, how that goes over, and then you've got his little finger that kind of comes down a little bit. And that actually comes into, you can see where his little finger comes into this little rectangle underneath. And so we can put a little rectangle there. In fact, I've just put a little D shape, to be honest. And then we can put the rectangle for the little finger going up to the knuckle on the back here. And I'm just putting a couple of little curves in to indicate, it's like it's the C. And there's another C. And they are just the basic shapes of the knuckles on the back of his hand. Now, inside these, you can see your points where we need to put these letters in. The runes. So that's where that kind of, it looks like an X that goes behind, but you've got the feet, the lines coming out from behind the fingers. Then we've got this Y shape, this kind of bird's foot. And that comes down, and you can see how it's above the 165 and then stops above the 185, just to the right of the 85 line. And then you've just got a V. Now the number 3 starts from the 165 line, and it is just a number 3 that curves round. And then the 9, that's inside that rectangle. And they're not all on the same line, so they are slightly higgledy-piggledy. And then you've got this kind of 0, well, the side of a figure anyway. Again, I'm doing a D for the knuckle there, little curve for that one, and the same on there. Now, we've got lots of little runes down in these marker in these little rectangles. So we're going to start off, we've got a CL097, so you've literally just got a C dot L, a thin 0, 9 up in the air a little bit, 7, I always put a line through my 7s, like the Arabic, the way that they do it, because it's to do with the corners. Need to stop doing that. There's no line through the 7. Then there's an S. Then we've got a G, 4, bigger 4, and then a little 3. Then we've got some kind of weird rune. So that's going to be whatever that one is. It's not an X. Looks like it. Well, it's nearly an X, but with a bit on the side. So if you do an X, but don't join it in the middle, that'll help you. Then you've got the kind of bird's foot thing. So we've got a Y with a little prong above it. Then we've got an X. And you can see where that comes under. Then we've got a kind of lopsided F. And then in this bit in between the 3 and the 9, we've got a 0. So we can draw a long, thin 0. Should be a bit longer and thinner than that, really. Then we've got a 7. I've not put the line through it. Then we've got another bird's foot, another Y with a prong on the top. Then we've got another X. Then we've got a 4. Then we've got a 6. Then we've got an X with lines either side. Then we've got an upside down bird's foot. And then we've got a 2 and something sticking underneath. And there, all we've done is used very simple shapes. Now again, I'm just going to quickly, you can see here, we've got a rectangle for that shadow, another rectangle for that shadow, lines for creases in his shirt. And then here you've got the patterning on his shirt. They're just V's. Just very simple. I'm just putting these in quickly that will help with the drawing in a bit when we start putting the shading in. Now from the side of his hand we've got a rectangle there for that crease. I'm just putting these little markers in very quickly. So here we've got a triangle of highlight, and that comes down. Just curve that over for that shadow. Another little triangle of highlight, and that's the curve of his cuff. And over here we've got a triangle for that shade. And that's just very quickly and simply putting a lot of shapes down to help give us the foundation, and you know that everything is in the right place on your picture. And now we can put the detail outline down next. Just sharpening my pencil, and now we can detail up our Sirius. So we're going to start with his wispy hair at the top, and where we've got that mark, we've got that very strong highlight. So I'm just following the line, inside the lines down, the curve of the back of his hair, the construction lines that we put in. You can just keep looking at your reference, and there we've got those straggles that come right the way out. Now again, I'm using this piece of paper to stop my hand from smudging the pencil line that we've got down already. Now you can see how it comes under the 65, but his hair comes quite far out. And then we want to just curve that down where it comes to the shadow part underneath his neck. Well, to the side of his neck and his collar. We got this tiny little triangle. So I'm going to detail that up. Again, all of even the grid lines, I draw these on quite dark. I'm doing these lines much darker than I would do them for my own drawing, but I do them so that you can actually see the outline appearing. So you can see how his shoulder curves down, comes down inside this little corner point, and then you've got that crease where it just kinks out a little bit, and then his arm comes all the way down and just goes a little bit flat there, and that's his outline just down the right hand side. Now we've got where we've got this rugby ball of highlight on the top. I'm going to curve the hair down. It comes right through that 85-25 point, and his hair curves down inside, and then you've got a flick out that comes and curves around into this rectangle on the side that we actually put in. Now right the way down at the bottom, his hair curves around and under. Now when you're doing hair, draw the hair and the curls or the straight in the direction that it actually is, as if you were brushing it. And these curls are just like the capital C's, nice and simple and quick. And you can see they're just like big C shapes, nice big curls on his hair coming down. Now here we've got some simple shapes, darker lines coming down. And then you've got this curl that comes down the 85 line, but it just waves a little bit and comes right the way down. Then we've got these two hairs that just, like two slightly thicker strands of hair that come down and then curve across. And the same with this one, just curves down and then curves across. So you've got an S shape. Nice and simple. Now you can see how his hair curves up there, and you've got this little V, how the hair then here, you've got this straggly bit that comes down, curves, and then curves out by the eye, and then curves across. Now we've got the side of his jaw going into the shadows, and that curves down slightly, just a slight little curve, and then his jawline comes out and it comes down, so you've got a little triangle on the 125 125 line. We need that jaw to just go and curve up in that shadow, and then it comes across, curves around to underneath where his chin is, and then goes up. And again, you can see you just got that little triangle there of shadow just to the right of the 85 125 line, and then the line goes up and underneath his hair, and you can just curve it all the way up. And there you've got the very simple shape of his face and his hair actually down. Now again, just building on the simple shapes that we've already put in, you can see where there's a V here with a flat bottom, and that's his nose going up to his nostrils. And the side of this nose is just to the right of the centre line, and the side of it is just like a C. So on this side it's going to be a D, and that's about on the quarter line. And then we've got that dark shadow, but we've got a highlight there, another little triangle inside of a highlight. Now the eyes, we've got these rectangles and shapes that we actually put in, and you can see right through the 85 line is where his eye actually sits. And we've got the nice dark shape, so you can see just from the corner of his eye, just a little angle, and then goes up and across, and then curves down to right just underneath the 85 line onto the centre line. And then we've got where we've got this triangle here, you've got a nice shadow part. You've got a nice deep shadow there that goes up. We've got his eyeball in the shadow, and then you've got his lower eyelid just curves underneath, and then the highlighted part on that, and then you've got bag underneath his eyes, and then the second bag, you know, he's been in prison, he's a bit haggard, is underneath that, and there's no highlight on his eye. And then coming right the way over to the 125 line, we can bring the rest of his eye socket And there you've got Sirius's left eye going in, but again, very quickly, just using shapes. So now to the side of his nose, we've got underneath the 85 line, we've got a little square of dark there. And again, we've got the centre of his eye, his pupil and his iris. And that does fall just to the left of the kind of middle of that square, the 85 to 105. And we've got the hair that comes down, but we can now carry that diagonal up. This is his eyebrow. That goes up behind the hair. You can see it's just that little bit higher than the left eye. And then his eye curves round, comes down behind his, where that hair is, right into the corner. Now, the bottom of his eye lid, that goes right up to that corner. And then we've got this V of shadow for the bag under his eye. Now, nice simple shapes, and we'll get his moustache in. So just to the right of the centre line, there's a little rectangle, and then another rectangle to the left of the centre line, kind of coming out of that nostril. And then we want a rectangle coming down the side of his cheek here, and then this is a little bit curved. So you can put a little rectangle in, but then curve it slightly. And then we can connect those two bits up on the lines that we'd already put in on the construction lines. And that's the shape of his moustache already in. Now, just going to sharpen the pencil again, just so as I've got a nicer, finer point. And his bottom lip is right on the 125 line. And so we can curve that shape around. That comes up to the centre. And the same on that side. And then we've got this deep shadow caused by his top lip underneath his moustache. And then that curves off up underneath. Now you've got a slight little V for that centre part above your top lip. And that's his top lip curving all the way across. So I'm just going to indicate the dark in like we did with his eyes. And then we can put that tiny little V point above. Now I'm filling his moustache in just quickly, but again, same thing. I'm putting the lines in the direction of the way his moustache would actually grow. That comes right the way down to the edge. Then underneath his lower lip, we've got a little shadow. And then coming out of the right hand side of underneath his nose, you've got the moustache coming down. Just filling that in. You've got a curve on this side, and then that curves down inside that rectangle. And there already you can see we've got Sirius's face on his wanted poster starting to look out at us. Now, I put all of these letters in, but I actually missed off Azkaban Prison. That wasn't very clever, was it? But this is where we do the outline. You know, you don't have to get everything down in the boxes at the very beginning. You can build on the rest as you go. So now we're going to draw in his left hand. Again, his knuckle. needs to curve up and over, and then the line comes down. And that curves around at the back. Then his second knuckle just comes out that little bit more. Then the third. Then the fourth. Now his finger comes down. And then we've got the second finger. You've got the crease just comes down. Little kind of smile. And then curves over. And then the next section of his finger curves around and curves underneath. Now the third finger is pretty on the horizontal. And that curves across, comes down to the 185 line, goes just underneath, but then it's slightly diagonal and you've got that deep shadow that we will build upon. And then you've got the little finger. That little finger comes out and then curves down into that deep shadow. You can just indicate where the shadow is. Then that comes up and joins where the knuckle is. And you've got the back of his hand that comes down inside the cuff, the shadow of the cuff. And the cuff causes the curve all the way around. So I'm going to start from the top and bring the cuff all the way down to the shadow that's there. Now I'm just quickly going to use the side of the pencil so that it's not a solid line, and I can just indicate where that deep shadow is going to be, just there. Now the edge of the shirt, the cuff comes down, curves around, you've got that nice V, then you've got the shadow of highlight. You can see here coming around we've got a kind of D shape on the front. And the same for the very edge. Now where we got the solid corner lines of the shapes that we put in, I'm just rounding those off. Bring that down, curves under, meets where his shirt is at the back on his body, and then that just curves off a little bit. It's not perfectly vertical, so you can just wiggle that out a little bit. Now we've got the lines going all the way down. Now again, all underneath his neck is shadowed. So I'm just indicating where the shadow will come right underneath his neck. Now again, on this collar here, using the side of the pencil, just indicating where all of the shadow is going to go to. And we can curve his collar down. We've got the triangle construction line, we can just curve that down, that meets, and then a nice little curve up and over, and it comes down into the shadow where it's going to join. Now his shoulder on that highlight comes off, comes down and curves over just to the right of the 25 line. Then we've got this edge of his shirt, of his upper sleeve, his upper arm, just comes down. It's not a perfect line, so you can just wave it a little bit. And then the elbow just curves out that little bit more, comes around the actual corner point, comes down through about the centre there, and it comes underneath, and then you've got a little flat bit, curves back up through the next square, and then curves out for his body at the back. Now coming down from his hand, I'm going to start underneath, so I'm curving, and you can see the bottom part of like a C, and that's the hand going up inside the cuff, and that goes up to the second knuckle. We've got that little shape there, and that's inside that shadow. So again, I'm just going to use the side of the pencil, indicate where that shadow is. and the same on where the little finger's going to go. Now, the cuff curves around, we've got the shadow, but we've got the nice highlight that comes down, and then we've got that triangle of highlight there, and we've got this triangle of shadow here. Then that nice highlight there, we can indicate where that is, and then there's a little triangle of shaded pattern on his shirt down there. Hopefully that's looking quite good and you're enjoying getting this outline down. So now we've got the shadow on the side here. Now again, we've got just nice simple V shapes for the pattern on his shirt. We can just indicate those very loosely. Then the shadows in the folds here, they're going to be very dark. That crease going up, that one. Now we can draw in his hand, his right hand. So we've got the curve of that knuckle, curve of the top knuckle, comes up through right on the 45-165 mark. And then the finger comes up, curves around the knuckle, and then we've got the first finger curves out, second finger, that curves over, curves down, and it just curves just above the 185 line. Now the third finger curves down, and remember, you put all of these construction lines in using these little rectangles, and they just help as guides. Then the fourth finger, we've got this fantastic shadow. So we've got a crease here, and then the top comes down to where the little finger comes out across this little rectangle. That curves back in around, and then we've got this really deep shadow where the crease is underneath. And then we've got the secondary shadow of the lighter part of the finger. Now, I'm just going to sharpen the pencil again, as we now need to do the Azkaban sign. So I'm going to darken the bottom line, and we don't need to do the edges because they are going to go into deep shadow. Then we can darken the line around the lower box, the upper line. Now I'm letting my hand move free from my shoulder. I'm not doing little lines. So you can just kind of, you can do it little by little, or see my hand just move. So we're going to have the deeper shadow underneath. So I've done that second line. Now again, that goes across through the 65 line and up underneath the finger. So just put that on a little bit too dark. But again, this is where I put these lines on very, very dark so that you can actually see them. Now we've got all of these little windows for the numbers and runes. And so I'm going to put all the bottoms in. They need to be level above these parallel and at the same kind of level above with all of these, the top line of these two windows. Now the same on here. You can see we've got the top of that knuckle, and I need to bring that line over there. That's where that kind of goes. So now, yeah, that needs to go further over. And then we can connect the sides. And there you've got your little rectangle windows on the actual Azkaban sign. Now, coming up from the side of his hand, and we can now draw the very top in all the way across. Remember, that's slightly diagonal, and the edge comes down there. Again, we don't actually need the edge part because it's going to be in the deep shadow. And then we want the same for that kind of highlighted ridge. You just indicate the two little circles in. And then we've got side of that O. I'm using the side of the pencil just because it's bigger. There's the 9, the 3. Again, they're not kind of regular shapes, are they? And that curves under. Then we've got the kind of crow's foot Y. And then we've got the edge of that rune. Now we can use these rectangles as the reference points to actually help us put the Azkaban prison words in. So if I draw a light horizontal line over there, and you can see it's got to come underneath this line, they're the tops and bottoms of your letters. This is simple lettering. Now, even though I'm left-handed, I'm going to go from this side. So we've got, very simply, a triangle there. That's the A. Now, I'm going to put the next A in. That's just a little triangle. Then, right on the 105 line, I'm putting a rectangle in, which is going to be the N. That's where the B and the A are going to go. And then we've got Z, and we've got the K. So I put these little rectangles in that will allow me to draw the actual text in of the letters. And we're going to do the same. So just to the left of the 125, we've got the R. And then we want a rectangle for the P. Tiny little rectangle is going to be the I. Then we've got the S. The O is just to the right of the 145. And then we've got the N to the right of it. Very, very quick. So now we've got, just filling in the letters because I've put the rectangles in. So there's the Z. There's the back of the K. That goes off serif at the end as Kaban. There's the back of the B. Just the front of the B. Then I'm going to put in the N. Then we want the top of that A going down. Then we want the P, the R, the back of the R, the curve, then the kick. The I's already in. The S, just nice and curved. Then we've got the nice O, and then we've got the N at the end. 2 verticals and connect it. And there we have our outline down. Now we're going to rub out all the grid lines and the construction lines. But as you can see, we've got all of this full image down all around the basic shapes that we put down using our construction lines. Anyway, I hope that made a lot of sense and you had fun actually getting this outline down. Now I use this Mars plastic eraser. It's just a personal favourite, and I'm using it to at first clean off the big areas so I don't lose too much of my underdrawing that I've now got in. So I can obviously get it inside his hair, and I'm really pressing on. Sometimes I've pulled it out of the actual tape on the corners. Now I'm going to erase around the edge. And as I've said before, I'm not going to, I just think it looks a bit arty if I don't rub out the grid completely. But I draw the grid on very dark so that you can see it all, but you don't have to do it. You know, if you do check out the link that I said from the beginning, laying down the grids video, if you do actually check that out, I show you how drawing on a piece of paper right here in front of you using, say, a 2B pencil darkly like this, you get a dark line. Whereas if you use a 2H, you wouldn't be able to see it, so it wouldn't help you with the actual drawing. Now that's the bulk, so I'm just brushing this off quickly, and then I need to come back in and get rid of the lines underneath. But like around the edge where you can still see some bits, I've just swept that onto the paper that I rest my hand on and then put that in the bin rather than just sweeping it onto the floor. Now I have this one, which is the same thing. It's a Mars plastic eraser but in a pen, and it means I can get inside where the large rubber can't get without destroying the drawing. So like I say, here within his nose, I've just got a lot more directional control, and I do have an electric eraser as well. It's an even finer tip than this, and it means I can get in even tighter spaces and not rub out all of the hard work of the underdrawing that we've actually put in. So you can see down here in his shirt, inside the fingers, I'm able to remove those grid lines without rubbing out large areas of my underdrawing. Now I've said this before, that people who I've been asked recently, you know, is using a grid cheating? It's like, no, it's been used for over 500 years. Anyone who does hyperreal or very realistic art and they don't show you their working out, they're either using a projector, tracing, or using a grid like this. It's just basic art techniques. And it's been used for 500 years since we've had lenses. So there's nothing wrong with using a grid. It just helps. Now there are portrait painters who do paint from life, and they are absolutely fantastic. And I love seeing their, and you see, like you've seen me put these construction lines down, even on top of this grid, you still see the construction lines. and you see them essentially just putting messy lines down, and then they build on top of it because they're putting the shapes down. The grid helps you put the shapes down much clearer and quicker. Again, just keep looking around and you'll see where you have to rub out some of your construction lines. See, there's some right inside there. Now, you can get much smaller rubbers, but this is small enough, and just because it spins, that does the backwards and forwards motion of you rubbing out. But you can see you can just get much closer, tighter detail with this rubber. Now it has taken off the C, but we can put that back in because I can still see the little bit of the construction line that I'd put in. Now I use a brush as well to lightly dust off all of these bits of spent rubber of my drawing so that I don't smudge the drawing. And there we have our full outline of Sirius. Now, just going to come back in with my 2B pencil. And I'm going to come in and we're going to draw that C. Now, we've also got an O, and that's the 9 up at the top. Now, it's a good job I did rub out because I've got that 7 and I put the cross on like I normally do with 7s. Now, I can just crisp up these numbers a little bit. And there's nothing that I've actually obliterated. So there we have our full outline down of Sirius, and that's looking pretty good. Now straight away I'm going to use the one that's actually in my pencil extender. We're going to come in and I'm going to quickly fill in all of Sirius with a lighter tone. Now I'm not going in the direction of the hair because I'm not turning the pencil, I'm just filling in very, very quickly, and then I'm going to smooth it with a piece of kitchen roll. Again, the same on his face. Even though we've got a strong highlight here, I'm going to pull that out with the rubber in a bit. And the same with his nose. Because I'm only putting a light tone in, because we've got this lovely sepia toned image of this drab prison environment, you know, police cell, wizard police, the auras, aren't they? They go out after the bad wizards. And so this filling this tone in completely is going to help when we come to putting the other shadows, mid-tones, and then erasing out the highlights. Again, I'm not resting my hand and I'm pivoting from my shoulder and my elbow. And I've gone all over that hand and up that arm. His left hand, and then the Azkaban prisoner number board. So filled all of that in very, very quickly. Then I'm going to come in with this kitchen roll that I've used before, but I'm just folding it inside out, so as I've got the clean inside now. Now I am just on his hair, just pushing that down all in the same direction that the hair would go. And then around his face, his forehead. Now I can see there I did actually miss off rubbing out some of the construction line that's right on his forehead. So I'm just using the putty rubber, pulling that off. And that putty rubber, because it's old and dirty, had actually got grease on it, strangely enough. So I've pulled that dirty mark off, and that's fine now. Now I can pull this shade down. It doesn't matter about going over the edges, just looks a bit arty, that does. And I'm just smoothing this mid-tone. This is just something that I do. You don't have to do this. This is something that I actually enjoy doing, and it gives an extra dimension to the drawing that I like. It's just a technique that I've developed. And there you can see we've just filled in that tone very, very quickly. Now this is, you can see the difference. Oh, let's not knock the drawing. This is a newer, it's been used on a couple of drawings now, clean rubber. This is the old one, and it just picks up the pencil. Now because I want the actual clean highlight, I'm going to use the clean one, and I'm just pulling it out to a larger point, and I'm just dabbing where that highlight is over his left eye, coming across, and you've got the highlight just on that bottom part of his nose, and then right in the hair at the top. Again, I'm pulling off the pencil in the direction of the way that the hair falls over Sirius's head. Now, top of his fingers and his knuckles, I've got whiter highlights, and just that knuckle, and those. Now in the boards and the numbers, I'm just mottling, I'm just literally baffing the rubber on. Now the Azkaban prison letters, I've pulled it to a point, and I'm just pulling the pencil off slightly, just touching it, because those letters are raised up and slightly cleaner on the top. I'm just going to redo the N, that A, the B, A, the K, the Z, and the A. Just indicating some of the curls in his hair. And there we've got our mid-tone in, with a few highlights just indicated. And that's now going to allow us to build everything else on top of the drawing. So now we're going to fill in. I'm using a 4B pencil. Again, it's in the pencil extender. But we're going to fill in using the side of the pencil a lot of where the darker tone is going to be. And we're going to just fill in all these big shapes. And we'll probably have to come in with the 8B pencil for all of the dark area. You see, I'm using the flat side of the pencil and it's just creating this really nice tone. And I'm resting my hand on top of my right hand and it just allows me that flexibility to pivot from the shoulder. There you can see we're just filling in lots of area quite quickly. Now I'm not even resting my hand on my shoulder. It's just only while I was doing those, resting my hand on left hand on my right hand. I am pivoting just freely from my shoulder, coming up underneath. The left hand side of the picture, underneath his right hand, his little finger. And then coming underneath the hand. And then coming down in the shadow. I'm doing this. This is like a very good study in tone. Oops, dearie me, ping. And that's the thing, I just went off the paper ever so slightly. Let's just tape that back down again. And I creased it at the bottom, I caught it on the upstroke. And that's what took it clean off the page. Have to be careful. It really has just creased the bottom of the paper right there. Little drawing mishap. Anyway, that was rather enjoyable. So now we've got this little triangle of dark. These shadows there that are coming down to the top of his hand. Shadow in the crease on the right hand sleeve. Right arm sleeve even, let alone right hand side. Now, I'm just filling in that slightly lighter tone there. And the same going up to the highlight on the shoulder. Collar. That's where it's going to go really dark. And then underneath the collar to the top of the plaque. So I'm going to do the same on his left sleeve. Got that lighter tone going up. I'm just trying to fill in large areas of tone on the sleeve. And underneath his hand. So if you just look at where the shapes are, and then underneath the second finger, third finger. Again, this is getting lighter, so I'm not pressing on as hard, but I'm still using the side of the pencil and I'm not twisting it over, because it has given me that really nice large soft pencil. Rather than little lines, I'm just getting lots of big nice tonal value down onto the paper. Again, second finger underneath that triangle of that finger shape completely there. Corner of the knuckle, same with that top knuckle, then coming along the second finger. Now, underneath his neck, coming up the side of his face. So again, this is a kind of middle darker tone where we're going to put the very, very dark shadows down. And it just helps us to get a lot more form and shape in. But we're not looking for full three-dimensionality yet, because we're just looking, now again, the hair, I'm going in the direction of the hair, but we're just looking to indicate where the blocks of tone and shadow and shape are. Again, this helps for very, very quick sketching. It's the kind of thing that you could do from life. So now he's parting right at the top. And I'm still using the flat of the pencil, I haven't turned it over yet. Got these dark shadows just at the front. Where that comes down. And then the dark of his hair, this massive shadow. Coming down. And then going up into the hair. And we've got these straggly lines coming down. And there you can see we've got just nice tonal shapes starting to bring about Sirius's face. Now, the actual plaque, again, it's darker at the top, the bottom than it is at the top. So I'm just filling it in with the kind of flat tone. But I'm not being too careful because it is a kind of mottled metal. Now, if you wanted to get the absolute full photographic detail of this mottled metal effect, you would have to spend a long time. And even like the sides of these rectangles that the numbers are in, you would have to spend longer than I did just trying to get them absolutely square and the lines straight or straighter. Now you see in that shade and shadow on the top part, I've left a little bit of a highlight along the very top edge, filled it into the dark line, and then done the same going along the top. Now I'm just filling in between the letters. I'm resting my left hand on top of my right, pivoting from my shoulder, and it just gives me a little bit more control. And I'm not resting my hand on the paper and possibly smudging it. Gone all around those letters, inside that O. Then we've got a little shadow at the top caused by the top of that, and we've got the same in these figures down here. I'm lightly filling in that tone underneath where his shirt will be. Now that is quite a nice, you know, where you've got these shadow bits, that's quite a nice effect. And you can develop that and use that in your drawing if you want to. But we're going to carry on and fill in more and more detail, you know, to bring the drawing up to a full finished portrait. Again, a 3/4 body is a little bit more complex. But this is why we take the time in actually putting all the construction lines down at first. So there we just darkened up his moustache, his top lip, that shadow underneath his bottom lip. Now we're doing just indicating a little bit more shadow in his eye, right the way out to the eye socket. Then we want his right eye. Coming down the bag underneath his eye. But there you can see already Sirius is starting to really look back out of the picture at us. Now we've got a shadow right underneath his nose because the highlight is coming pretty much from directly above. Now I'm still using the 4B pencil, but I'm just going to build up the tone on his face, coming down the side of his cheek, right down to his chin, filling his bottom lip a bit, the side of his nose, across the bridge of his eyes, and down the right hand side of his nose. Got the very tip of his nose. I'm leaving where we rubbed out that nice triangle of highlight. And then his cheek down the right hand side. So we need to bring back in the crease in the corner of his mouth. From his nose down the side of his cheek, on both sides. There already we've got much nicer shapes and shadows. Got this crease right across his forehead, just slightly curved. And then a bit of shadow coming down from his hair on that side. And again we've got shadow underneath his eye. And we're just gently building that tone up, but already you can see we're actually getting pretty good definition and shape and form in his face just by adding that little bit of tone. Now I'm going to come back in with the piece of paper that I'm resting on, and I'm using the 4B pencil still. Because it's darker, and I'm indicating where his iris and pupil will be, and that's going darker. And then we've got that slightly diagonal line for the top of his eyelid and the crease above. And then you've got that one going right down to the corner. And then we've got this tone right into the corner of his eye socket and his nose that goes much darker. And then the curve of his upper eyelid just curves around a little bit. I'm indicating the underneath part, and that goes right into this deeper shadow, and we can just fill that shadow in, just keep adding little bits, and it just builds up that lovely deep tone. And already you can see Sirius's eye really, and his eye socket really starting to lift off towards us, deepening that shadow right in that corner, going up to where his eyebrow would be, just building that tone over. And I'm softening the edge where it goes to the nose, just softening slightly, and then putting a little angle just on the edge of that socket there. Now the bag underneath his eye, just filling a little bit in, and then we've got this V coming underneath. And there, he does look a lot more sinister and menacing now. Just indicate that crease a little bit more. Now if we do the same for his right eye, you can indicate where iris and pupil would be. Again, we've got no highlighted point right in. Now we've got a highlight of hair that's coming down, so I'm carefully indicating the hair underneath so that I know not to go over with the pencil that highlighted part there. Now I can indicate his right eyebrow, and then we've got this lovely dark on the edge of his hair, so I'm just indicating that quickly. Remember, this is with the 4B pencil. And then we've got the dark right in the corner of his nose, and that diagonal goes up his eyebrow. And we've just got that shape nicely. We've got the upper eyelid again. It's going to be lighter, so I'm just indicating the underneath line, and then we've got that deep shadow right in the corner, so I'm just filling that in, shade a little bit more, and there we've got his right eye now just starting to really stare out at us. Now the crease underneath his right eye, that bag going right down underneath, slight smaller one right underneath, just gently, and I'm spinning the pencil just so as I get a sharper point, and it just helps to keep the point, because it's a 4B, it will wear down very, very quickly. Crease in between his nose. So just by spinning the pencil, you actually get a sharper tip, but I'm just letting the pencil rest on the page and gently just going backwards and forwards, and that's how I'm filling the tone in. Just adding a little bit at a time. But it's that nice darker tone that is building up the tonal values and shapes on his face. So now we've got coming down the side of his nose. You've got that C shape and then little corner bit there. On this side you've got a tiny little bit. Shadow on the bottom of his nose. It's a bit like a circle or a little diamond. We can carry that shape on around the bottom of his nostrils. Then crease out to the side of his nose, coming down above the top of his moustache. And then can really, like we did with his eyes, just indicate the real dark of his nostril underneath his nose, and then that shadow above the top of his moustache. And the same for the right hand nostril. I'm just softening the edge off of that black that we just put in, and then really indicating the dark of his moustache coming down to where his top lip is, but going in the direction, twisting the pencil, of the way that his moustache would actually grow. And that's looking pretty good and menacing. I hope you're enjoying this. This is fantastic. So now we've got the moustache to the side, just curving down a little bit. And then we've got this really nice dark shadow of his top lip. And it just curves a little bit, rises in the centre and then curves out to the edge again. And then that goes right off up into his moustache. And we can darken that down, just fill the tone in, and then we've got that complete shade. And then the darkness underneath bottom of his bottom lip, that's that extra shadow. Now I'm just indicating carefully the bottom shape of his chin, coming round and up to the side. Again, this is just a question of carefully building up the tone, and I'm going as quickly as I can, but you guys can just take it a little bit quicker, slower, sorry, if you want to. I'm just doing this to show you how there's no formula that you follow for any particular part of a face. You just keep going around and doing different bits and pieces, just adding some tone on the side of his cheek, and then here we can see we need that darker line coming up the side of his face, and his cheek, going into the massive shadow on his hair on the left hand side of his face. And down the nose. Little bit coming off that side of his cheek, giving us that slight curve. And that's quite a nice image already, just starting to come together. Like I say, as we build up more, you'll see more and more develop and come out of the page. Oh, just dropped my pencil. I'm just sharpening that, but I'm now going to come in with the 8B pencil. And the reason is it's just softer and darker. It's easier to get the dark down with an 8B pencil than it is with a 4B. And we've got a lot of dark that I want to get down quickly in this drawing of Sirius. So you can see here I'm just filling in these shapes, but again, oh, just snap the end off completely. Didn't mean to press on that hard. It's softer, so you will do that far easier. Like I say, I'm trying to use the flat, but as I increase the angle, it snapped the tip off the pencil. Oh, went again. Not trying to do that on purpose, but I'm trying to draw these shapes in that will leave the highlights in his hair showing, because you can come back in with a white crayon or something like that, or paint. I'm just trying to use the actual paper. Now I'm resting on my left hand on my right hand again, rather than using the paper, just so as I can move freely and quickly. So I've got this larger area of tone, and then we've got this nice dark of that one strand of hair that comes down and goes over the side of his cheek. And then here, right by the side of his cheek, it's very dark. And I might have to try and get... I used to have some pastel pencils, chalk pencils, but I gave them away. I'll have to get something that I can draw the highlights on afterwards, because this there, it's going to be very dark to actually leave the hair showing, and a putty rubber won't pull that out. Now that's the dark on that side, and already, I mean, you can see that is fantastic, just really starting to lift off now. And we've got this dark of his neck right on the top, just inside the collar, and we've got the dark coming right down underneath his chin, kind of like a V, but it's not as black as these bits at the side. And again, I'm really pressing on now. And we've got that shadow coming on the side there, but then underneath his neck, it's not as dark all the way across. Now you can do it one solid dark tone, but just by lightening your pressure a little bit, you get that really nice slightly reflected light inside. It's like a warm shadow. Then we've got that little V of shadow caused by his collar on the edge of the top of the prison number plaque. Now that's pretty good. Yeah, that's really quick, and I'm doing this as a overall tonal study just to show you how easy it is to develop a good strong image. I mean, you've got that there straight away. I mean, you could kind of leave that. That's arty. You know, you could leave that as it is. It's quite a nice arty image, but we're going to carry on building it up. So now I've just sharpened my 8B pencil again, and we've got these darker shadows at the tops of these number plaques where the numbers go inside. But then on this edge one, you can see it's not as dark, so you need to feather that off a little bit. It's not as dark as these centre three. So I'm using the sharper tip, making that dark, and then again, it's more like a little triangle, a little bit of dark there, and then it edges off. Now, these two longer ones at the bottom, you've got a much darker shadow right the way along. And the reason it's lighter there is it's a reflected highlight off his hands. So where you've got this bright highlight there, it's causing the shadow to not be as strong in that little rectangle. Shadow there by the side of his finger. Can increase that all the way across. Oops. Ting. Now, I'm increasing the shadow down a little bit further because when that snapped, it actually went onto the page. And I'm softening the shadow off underneath ever so slightly. So I'm resting my hand on top of the other so as I'm not smudging the drawing. And some people, some artists really like getting messy and dirty. And I don't mind being very expressive and creative, but because I do the prints as well, the motorcycle fine art prints, I have to kind of try and keep clean. But if I do kind of get dirty and messy, I make sure I have to wash my hands and make sure everything stays clean as possible. Now, down the edge of his finger, we've got this shadow, very dark at the bottom, and I'm just softening it off. And again, his little finger, we've got some crease line shadows, but we've got a nice shadow shape there that's dark and comes around underneath his finger, and then the bottom part of the number plate, and then the shadow that comes around underneath his hand there. Again, the one on the right hand side of his shirt. Again, I'm using the flat of the pencil and just filling those shapes in. You can see already it's really starting to lift up the drawing. Again, underneath the third finger here, we've got a little U shape and then another U shape. I'm using the edge of the pencil and just softening the edges. And then right down where his left hand's covering the plaque, again, we can bring that shadow down, just feather it out slightly. And we can just increase the intensity of the dark in the underneath his left hand little finger. But don't do a solid line. Just let the softness of the pencil graduate out. And then we've got this shadow again. You can come down from the finger, and you can see from the finger that's where the shadow is going to be. So just soften the line. Soften it where it joins that little light patch. And then we've got a hard line across the bottom of the plaque. And then I'm just softening the edge using the side of the pencil again. And that's how simple it is. You're just creating tone. And you've got to be gentle sometimes, and it helps. So now I'm filling in that dark little slither of a D shape by his hand and his cuff. And where his cuff comes round, you can just leave that little bit of a highlight, increase the shadow there. And then here now, we've got to fill in a shadow really quickly. Now, how flat you want to go is up to you. Now, I really like pressing on. I've said this in other drawings. I really like pressing on and getting the bird sheen of the black. And you can get black, I think it's charcoal pencils, and they'll do it matte. So it'll just be a flat matte black area, which is really lovely. But I'm doing this quickly. Got a triangle of slightly not as dark area, but as I was saying, I really like the effect of this quick pencil going down, and just the arty effect of it I think is really lovely. And I love seeing the sheen of the pencil. Now I'm holding the paper very carefully. Remember when I just plinged it earlier? Need to just sharpen the pencil because that's running out. And this will go into a pencil holder very soon. Oh, it's completely broke. And that's the problem with a very soft pencil. You can sometimes break the lead even inside the wood very easily, because I'm pressing on so hard. Now there's the tip again, just to get the effect that I'm after. And so you can break the actual core of your pencil. Now you can even get graphite powder to fill in large areas, but I don't think it would be as dark and as intense. Oh, done it again. Yeah, it's because I'm getting to the end of the pencil, I think. It's just not able to take the abuse that I'm trying to give it. Now I do have some more 8B pencils, but I'm trying to fill in this bit with this bit that I'm using now. I didn't expect it to give up on me like this. I was about to say give up the ghost. Now that's quite, it's just a saying. Don't know where the saying comes from, because who would give up a ghost? But in Harry Potter, obviously, you have the house ghosts. Nearly Headless Nick and Co. Well, that'll be an interesting one to do, won't it? But still, oh, this is lovely. This is absolutely lovely. Oh, that looks fantastic. Now, I really like that effect, but if you want it completely flat, you've got to spend a long time. Oh, gosh, just keep on snapping the end of my pencil off. So there we have all of that dark area. Doesn't Sirius look good? Just covered in and filled in really quickly. Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. I hope you're really enjoying this because I'm having a blast. Again, the thing with, like here, we haven't got the edge of his arm drawn, and we're letting the shapes that you put down, because everything's in the right place, your brain puts it together that actually there should be an arm there. And that's the beauty about drawing and painting. You are creating, a bit like the world of Harry Potter, an illusion. You're creating graphic magic, if you want, with a pencil. Every time you do a drawing, you are creating graphical magic. Isn't that wonderful? Now, here we've got the pattern on his shirt, and we put those initial V's in. And we can just quickly indicate the direction of some of the V's on his shirt in that shaded bit. And then you just feather in the shading. Until it graduates into the dark. And again, all down on this side now, you can actually just put some little scratchy lines in, and it makes you think you're actually seeing the V's. You can see there the shadow creating the effect that you need over the dark of the V's in the pattern of his shirt. So again, I'm now doing the black, and its pencil is broken. I'm going to have to get out of the drawer a new 8B pencil. So, fortunately, got a new one. Get the same profile on, out of my pencil sharpener. And the tip's gone straight away. They're just so soft. They are just so soft. This dark triangle. And the dark of this shade coming down this side. Oh, that's so much better. Then his hand coming down. Shade on the shirt going up. Now we've got a little line coming over, which is part of the pattern of his shirt, not the pattern, the patterns of the shirt that come together in the seam where they're sewn together. So that goes up to there. Just soften that edge. Dark there, crease coming down. Now that's all really starting to come together. Now we've got here a lot more of the V patterns on his shirt. I just want them to go up gently. And just indicate a little bit of tone underneath them. Again, just putting suggestions of the direction of the patterns on the shirt really, really works well. Now, you can get them completely accurately, but it just takes time. It's like, I did Queen Barb Troll, and that ended up as a 2-hour lesson because it took me time. There was lots of detail in it. She got a guitar and all kinds of widdly bits. But Ariana Grande, when I did that drawing, that was 4.5 hours nearly, and it was so soft. The tonal values on her face were incredible, but it was just a beautiful drawing to do. But you can go like here, quite impressionistic. But on Ariana Grande, because there was nothing like a shirt like this, I had to go very carefully to fill in the tones correctly. Now, on this side, we go in this kind of way. And I'm looking. Now I've got the other side of the V's. They're going up. We've got shadow going up there, going up to the fold. Got those lines. The shirt coming around that way. Then we've got some little V's going there. Pattern goes over the top, and then we've got this highlighted bit in the shade. Now on here, just indicate some of the pattern again, and I'm just using the soft side of the pencil. 2, 3 little lines there, 4. Increase the shadow of that triangle. And you can see there now, you've got very impressionistically the detail that you want of his sleeves. Just increasing some of the dark. Now, I'm going to carefully, I'm going to use the kitchen roll. I was wondering which tool to kind of use, as it were, but I'm going to use the kitchen roll and just smooth some of the, it's the right kind of size, just pressing underneath my finger. I'm going to smooth some of the shadow shading lines around. Now I'm in the real dark. I'm just pushing some more, because I've just picked up some of the dark. I'm just pushing some of that onto his shirt, his collar, shirt on his left sleeve going up. And then with my older dirty putty rubber, I'm going to come in. I'm picking up the highlights on his cuff, where that curves around, shirt sleeve down here. But I'm doing it in the kind of way that the pattern is on the actual shirt itself. And up here we've got a real highlight up at the top, and then I'm going to pinch this into a long point so you can see. And so I'm just dabbing in amongst the lines to, and now just stippling, indicate the pattern on his shirt. Now here we've got highlight coming down there, coming down off his shoulder, on his collar, then right on his shoulder. And that's just made his sleeve of his left arm look really, really good. So again, the same now on his right shoulder. Highlights, just dabbing the edge of that collar, indicating some of the patterning. Highlight on that sleeve, patterning on the shirt, a crease at the top of his shirt, and then we've got this strong highlight on the top of his sleeve of his right forearm, and just indicate some patterning on his right arm at the back. Then we want to crisp up that highlight. Now where I tried to leave some space in his hair, I'm just trying to flick in and pull out just some little highlight lines that we can detail up when we put the final details in his hair. But even that is looking like quite a good image even now. So now I'm indicating some more of the detail lines, just darkening that shadow a little bit. Same, that one that comes off there. Then we've got just some little patterning on his collar. That slight darker shadow. And then down the left hand sleeve. And then the pattern there in that little part. Now that's looking really good. So now we're going to come in and do the Azkaban prison board. Now I'm using the 4B pencil, and I want this darker shadow line, and it kind of gets dark in between. I'm using the tip just to indicate all the shadows that I need. Now the actual words of Azkaban prison are raised up and serifed, so we've got a little highlight on the top with a shadow underneath. Now this is where I would use my mechanical pencils, because the nib stays the same all the time. Now because a lot of people don't get access to them, and there's actually a slash in there by the O. That's why I use just the pencils. But I love doing these videos for you all, because it shows you what you can actually do just with normal pencils. So I'm doing the darker lines underneath, and I keep twisting the pencil so I've got a sharp point. So even though I'm coming over the top, the darker line is underneath because the highlight is coming from above. So the eye, you got your darker line right underneath, and the same for the R. And we just need to crisp up the edge. Underneath. And the curve on the P. And then down the back end of the P. Now we've got the next N. We've got the serif at the top, and we can bring the highlight out by increasing the shadow underneath, then on the top, and then you've got the serif. And then down the back edge. Then we've got the A. And that goes up, and we've got a little dot in the middle. Then you've got the serif at the bottom. Then we've got the B. And you can see the bottom is, it's not centered, so the curve of the B, it's higher at the top than it is at the bottom. Then we've got the back, and then you've got underneath. Then we've got the next A, and again same thing, do the edge, dot in the middle. And it's things like these, the details on all of this that take a lot more time. Now we want the K, which is bottom of the kick of the K is connected to the A. And that's why I don't say at the beginning of the videos, oh, this is going to be a however long video, because I'll just keep going until it gets done, until I'm happy, because I'm not trying to give you techniques to say, if you do this, you can fill in, you can do a drawing in this amount of time. I'm helping you develop skills. And then we've got the top point of that A. And that's what I really enjoy about drawing, is it just gives people skills to do so much creativity. Now, again, I'm now going to increase the shadow on the edges of these little rectangle boxes that the numbers are in. Again, I just keep twisting the pencil. This is kind of like hammered metal, so I'm not going really smooth. Now again, the same down on those edges. Now, somewhere, oh there it is, underneath my hand, I have my putty rubber. Now again, I'm using the dirty one because this is not a particularly clean picture. It's a dishevelled man about to go into Azkaban prison. Said it right that time. So I'm just pulling the point up and just taking the pencil off over the tops of all the letters, and that'll help make them stand out. Again, when I put these in, I put them in really quickly. If you want them to be absolutely exact, you've got to go much slower than I did. Ooh, my resting paper is disappearing. I'm just going to tape it because I'm working on this for a bit, so I'm just put a little bit of masking tape off the side just to stop it from falling off the drawing, so I don't inadvertently rub my hand on top of all of the pencil that we've put down. So again, same with the B, just pulling out the highlights, and the K, the Z, and the A at the end. So now I'm coming back in with the 4B pencil, and because it's all kind of mottled, I'm using the side of the pencil. I'm just doing little squiggly lines just to indicate this kind of dappled metallic surface. But I'm being careful. It's obviously darker where it's close to this shadow by his left hand. And I am literally just doing squiggles. And it's just filling in the areas of the metal plate top. And this is a choice. You can decide how you want to create the image. So if you were doing this photographically, you would have to basically do every single shadow point underneath each highlight. But there you can see we're just indicating what looks like the metal plate. And so now I'm filling in the center part in between these little windows. That's darker there, caused by the fingers of his right hand. Just putting squiggles down. And now I'm going over the lines a little bit, but doesn't matter. Just filling this part in with some squiggles. Coming along this long section now between the 2 windows at the bottom and the 5 number windows above. Again, just filling in with squiggles. Nice technical term, isn't it, squiggles? Doodling is such a wonderful thing. So now the squiggles on this edge, I'm just twisting the pencil and being a little bit lighter. Now I'm being very careful, going right up to the letters. So that I don't go over the highlighted letters that we've just pulled out by putting the shadows on and highlighting them with using the putty rubber. Again, I'm just coming around the P, doing the inside of the P, between the P and the N, underneath the N, top part of the N coming over the top of the P and the R, over the I, and I'm not going right up to that line because there's a highlight there. And you can see it's just giving a little bit more definition to the characters of the words of Azkaban prison. Coming down right underneath Azkaban now, filling up underneath that A and the K. Just keep on squiggling, turning the pencil. Now coming down to the A at the end, filling in the Z, a bit between the Z and the K and the A and the B, the centre parts of the B. Now again, I'm going over the top now, but not going right up to that line because we've got that highlight. Just squiggling along. There's all of that filled in. Now we've got a highlighted little circle there. And again, highlighted circle at the end. I'm going to come in quickly with the putty rubber just to pull off the pencil. And then again, just squiggling. I mean, again, underneath the top, there's a kind of shadow line that comes all the way along, so you've got another highlight line that's accentuated. And now between those two lines I can just fill that in with squiggles. And all your squiggles are is like some kind of cross hatching, but you're just filling in with a pattern, a random pattern, just so as the surface looks a little bit different. Because again, you are creating an illusion. I'm just crisping that edge up. Now, underneath his chin, the squiggles, we need some darker points in. And that's purely because of the shadow cast by his head and his face. And you can see how that's really starting to lift off now. Now I'm really just accentuating the shadows underneath the letters, and that just helps to pick them up that little bit more as well. There's underneath the B, underneath the A, underneath the K lines, underneath the bottom of the Z, and underneath that A at the end. Just adding some random squiggles everywhere, and that's the thing, it's just, it seems so random, but you just get to have fun with drawing. And I'm building up that dark in the centre, just to add, you can see the tone. Now, obviously, that highlight needs to go into shade right the way along the top of the Azkaban board. Now, I'm going to come in with a putty rubber, and on the edges you can really pull out the highlights, and the same there on that raised bit. Pulling up the highlight on the I, S and O and N. And again on this side now, increase the highlight. Now I'm going to come back in because I've increased that highlight, and if you put a darker line underneath, and you can actually see it in the drawing, it just helps accentuate and make that highlight stand out. Coming down the edge of the board. Oh, that's looking pretty good. Oh, I'm enjoying that. So now we've got all of these letters, and they're not flat black. So I'm putting the outlines in and then just filling in the tone, pressing on harder in little places. You can see there's just a little bit of kind of stippling. Now, because these letters are wobbly, but they're so big, I'm not sharpening my pencil just yet, and this is the 4B, so it's quite soft. So I've got the 9, you got the point at the end of the bottom of the 9, and it goes wider as it comes up, and then you've got the centre. Again, I'm filling it in, darker in some parts than it is in others. Now the same with the 3. Wider on this curve where it comes back in, you've got a point in the centre, wider at the top as it curves out, becomes a little bit thin, curves at the bottom, and then we've got a little kind of tadpole end. Again, filling in, but not uniform tone. Now, the kind of bird's foot, the chicken foot sign. That comes down. Then we've got the Y parts. And then we've got these legs that look like they're part of a K or an X. Now that should have come down. So now I'm just using my electric eraser just to quickly remove that. Then I'm just going to smudge some tone in there. That's better. Now again, inside these letters are kind of dirty, so I'm using the flat but squiggling again and just filling in. And you can see there's kind of like dirty patterning around the edge of the characters. So that's squiggled in, just sharpen my 4B pencil. Now we've got, oh, got to be careful. We've got the little characters at the bottom. So we've got a C, full stop, an L, then we've got a long thin 0, a 9 that's higher, then we've got a 7 that's lower down, but there's no crossbar through it. So there's the 7. Then we want an S, then a smaller G, then a tall 4, and then a small 3. And here we've got that kind of X, but it's a weird shape. So even though we've got an X to start with, I'm doing a little V at the top, then the flat side, and then an inverted V. Then we've got the little bird foot, then an X. Then we've got this kind of lopsided F. Then we've got a long thin O. Then we've got another 7. Then we've got another bird's foot. Then another X. Then another 4. 6 is a bit bigger. Then we've got an X with 2 flat sides. Then an inverted bird's foot. Then a 2 that's next to his finger. And then a line coming underneath. Now, all of a sudden, we've got the Azkaban sign looking like it's part of the drawing. And I'm just putting some kind of smudge lines on, like we did on these. Bit of shadow where it's next to the hand. Same underneath that finger. Then I'm just increasing some of the just detail lines. But that's looking pretty good. Now we're hopefully getting towards the end and getting close to final details. But we've got a lot of work to do on Sirius's face and his hands, and that'll get us towards that end part. But I hope you're enjoying this so far, because this is great. So now back in with the 4B pencil, and we're going to put in the tones on the hands. You can see we've got nice darker shadows here, and then it gets lighter as it goes up more towards the top of each hand. I'm using the soft side of the pencil, and I'm gently filling in the shapes of the tone of each of the fingers. So on the third finger you've got that little slight dark bit above. I don't know if you can hear the wind starting to pick up, and I do need my window open a little bit. But if that is picked up by the microphone, it's quite appropriate, don't you think, for Sirius on his way to Azkaban prison. And then got a little bit of shadow there, and then on the top finger going up to the edge. Now I'm resting my left hand on top of my right hand because of all of that black underneath, because if I was resting on the paper I could be smudging it, so I'm just being careful. Now already that left hand, you can see the highlight on top of the fingers, and so that with the shadow underneath is what gives us the three-dimensional definition that we need. Now I'm just using the tip, but carefully adding a little bit more shading, a little bit of cross-hatching on the fingers, coming down, going over that knuckle, down the back of the hand, knuckle on the corner of his hand and his palm, and then coming down underneath the cuff. And you're actually letting the shading and the shadows and the highlights create the form and tone that you need. So now I'm using the cleaner putty rubber and I'm pulling the highlights in on the top of his fingers. So you've got that second knuckle, then that curved shape on top of the finger, just dabbing some of the kind of little reflected highlights in. Then you've got the third finger, got a really strong highlight coming down to the knuckle joint, the finger joint, and then the actual knuckle on the top. And then in between the two knuckles there's kind of reflected highlights. And that's the left hand looking pretty nice. So if we come in and do the same on the right hand, and we can just increase the shadow there. Then we've got a little bit of shape going around the joint in the fingers, between the third and second finger. And then from the first finger, same, just gently increase the tone in between the two fingers. Then the shadow on the knuckle that curves over. Remember, we're doing tonal work on this one because it's the tones that are creating the shapes that we actually see. So now down on the little finger knuckle, little kind of semicircle crescent of tone. And here we can see where the dark really comes across. And we can increase that tone underneath. Then the little finger joint, where that curves around. And you can see here we've got, from this triangle of the third finger, we've got a cast shadow over the little finger. And all you do is you just keep looking at your reference and thinking, right, that's the next piece that I need to increase. And then we need to really bring the tone down, all the way down to the sleeve cuff. Now I'm coming in with the dirty rubber because I don't want to pull off too much, and I'm just going to be very gentle. Put in some reflected highlights underneath the palm. Now the little finger knuckle, finger joint, right at the end. Now I'm coming back in with the clean one. You can just use one, but it's just I just happened to started using a new putty rubber, so having the two is really beneficial. Eventually I'll just end up throwing the old one away because they just become too dirty to be of any benefit. And when this one becomes more dirty, then obviously it'll take over from the old one. Now again, the tops of these fingers, and that's the hands looking quite nice. So now we're going to come in. I'm still using the 4B, and I'm quickly indicating Sirius's hair. And you can see here where his parting is. I'm using the flat of the pencil now. We've got a lot more tone, creating shapes. But I'm pressing on lightly, but I'm still going, as I said when I did the first bit, and I say all the time when we're doing hair, you go in the direction of the hair. I'm trying to leave the highlights as much as I possibly can. But because I'm pressing on lightly, you can go in and pull out the highlights with the putty rubber. So now I'm just bringing his hair over completely. Now these lovely curls coming off the side. And then these dark curls that are coming down. We need to increase the shading inside, underneath his hair, where his hair goes up to his forehead. And then here we've got these darker lines that come down over his eye. I'm just being a little bit careful. Not being totally exact. You can put extra hairs on because hair falls whichever way it wants to. And you can see as it gets towards the highlight on the top of his head, we've got to get lighter in tone. And it just graduates out. And we've got those flicks going over. Just some little darker lines. And the hair at the back of his head. Already his hair now has a lot more definition. Now these dark parts coming up, we need to extend those dark lines going up towards the highlights. Again, the same on this side, hair coming off. The left hand side of his head. Now that's looking pretty good. Now we've got more of that hair coming down. That dark part really coming down from the top. Again, I'm coming back in with the dirty putty Robert, right on the highlighted part. And that will give us three-dimensionality that we actually need. Highlight there, going up the side part of his head, going to the back. Again, this is quite impressionistic, but you see that even doing it as loose and as quick as this, by doing it the way that you would do hair if you wanted to do it very, very detailed, by going in the same direction as the hair, you're actually helping yourself and making the hair look natural. And it all helps. You just indicate some little lines and it all makes it look more realistic. So now I'm going to come in with my 2B pencil and we're going to work on Sirius's face. And we need to bring the shadows and the tones kind of all together. So coming down underneath his left eye, filling in, and you can see where we've got that V, that bag underneath his eye, and then it comes down his cheek, comes down to the left hand side. So now I'm just softening the edge where it crosses into the shadow. And I'm just gently feathering the pencil. But you can see there's that shadow line that comes down and then comes down the side of his cheek. Now, from the side of his nose, we've got that crease that just needs intensifying. The side of his nose. Then we can increase the shadow on that side of his cheek. Just filling it in, little by little. And then the tone comes down and it just gets darker where his moustache kind of comes down to the kind of goatee bit at the bottom. And we can just put some, I'm using the tip of the pencil, some nice straggly points on where his kind of whiskers cross over into the shadow. And that gives us a kind of whiskery soft edge as well. Shadow caused by his nose. Just intensifying in his eyes. We've got this crease in between his nose. Now if we do the same down the right hand side of his nose and down his right cheek, so we can bring shadow down. Take that up underneath his hair. Really darken that underneath his hair. And then we want the side of his cheek. That shadow coming down. And right the way down to where his moustache is. That's darker. And we can fill in that part of his cheek even more. Now that's really starting to come together and leap off the page. Now we've got just above his furrowed brow. We can darken that area down. The crease in his forehead going off over his hairline. And again, we're just adding tone carefully. And it's something that I will always repeat. It's easier to add tone than it is to take it away. So you just build it up slowly. Now I've noticed we've not really used a blending stick or a cotton board or anything to smudge Sirius's skin tones. I don't think it needs it. It's just working really, really well. So sometimes just the fact that this is like his Azkaban mugshot, we haven't got to go for really smooth tones like we did with Ariana Grande. You can let the pencil do the work for you, and it adds to the character of the drawing. So here we want a little bit of highlight going up. Highlight shadow underneath the left hand side of his hair. Now I'm just increasing coming down the side of his face. Now we need to do the top of his bottom lip. And then coming down around the shape of his bottom lip. And the entirety of his chin. Got that dark tone coming right down to the bottom of his chin. I'm just, like I say, just being careful. Just filling in little by little. And it's giving us the tone and three-dimensionality that we need. Now even here on the side of his nose we've got a little bit more shadow coming down, and I'm just gently going backwards and forwards, up and down, and it increases the shadow on the side of his nose. We need to do the same, just coming down. And here you've got that nice kind of crease coming down. Then the edge of his nose, the tip of his nose, sorry. coming down from his eye. Again, this diagonal shadow coming off. We've got the V underneath his eye. And then we can intensify the shadows around his moustache where we need. Then underneath his bottom lip. Right down to the point of his chin. I'm just indicating the kind of lines on his lip. Now there, that's looking pretty good. And we need to indicate his crease in his forehead. Shadow going up to the top, and then down his nose we've got a little with the highlights right on the top. And so I'm just increasing the shadows where I need them. And that makes the highlights stand out that little bit more. Again, right in his lips. Now because we've put 4B pencil down as well, putting the extra 2B on top, that does intensify and darken it. Now quickly, it's kind of like a W highlight on his nose there, and I'm just dabbing that up and a crease over his nose. Top of his upper eyelid, and then we've got reflected highlights in the bags under his eyes, and then coming down off his cheeks. I'm just dabbing very, very gently. And that's just given so much lift to Sirius's face. The highlight right underneath that crease line. And then the highlight right on the top of his forehead. Now that's really looking good. I think we've just got final details to go, and that's about it. So I'm just back in with the 2B pencil, just carefully, just adding a little bit of definition. Where we need it. So we need some darker lines for his hair. And then you can see the shadow should be darker coming down underneath his eye because of the hair. So I need to come back in with my 8B pencil. And that'll intensify the shadows where I need them there. And again, just I need to find, right, here we are, 2B pencil, a long one. I just need my longer 2B pencil. So that I'm not smudging the paper. I'm going to get a real sharp point on it now. And that'll allow me to increase the shadow that I need underneath his left eye, the upper eyelid, just that little bit. And then the dark right in that corner. This is with the 8B, just increasing that shadow a little bit more. And we need, that needs to just kind of point up a bit. Just makes him look a little bit more menacing. That's pretty good. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've really enjoyed myself. And here we've got some little scratchy bits on his chin, coming down from his moustache to his goatee. Again, you can see just by putting those little darks on, it's made his chin look more three-dimensional. Now the dark right underneath his nose. Now in the side of his hair. Again, back to the 2B pencil just because it's sharper. And we can indicate these really nice hairs. So now this is the 8B pencil, and I'm just increasing the dark on his collar. And this is the fiddly faffy stage. This is what you end up doing. It's like, when do I call it today? When do I stop? When do I stop? When do I end a picture? And this is the good fun bit. This is where you can just mess about a little bit to finish off your drawing. Now, I'm filling in the shade right underneath his neck, right where the collar is. I'm doing it absolutely black, but being careful to leave the highlighted kind of neck and then graduating it over the collar. So you can see that that's worked really well. Now I want to do the same from his little fingers, and this is personal preference. This is just me faffing about. Coming over onto the metal, we've got the corner of his hand, his palm, and then coming right the way over. That's jet black. and it graduates into these little chevrons, these little V triangle points on his shirt here. So that's darker. I'm just holding the paper, and then we've got it jet black again coming up his palm and his little finger right underneath. Just coming down the edge of the number board. We've got the dark right underneath there, so that's crisped that up, and you can see that's just really made that leap off the page. And we've got the shadow that comes down, fills in that area, goes into that area, and then comes down, fills up that arm, you can see that really dark shadow that's just appeared now. And I'm going to do the same. Oh, bust the pencil again. You've got to be careful. You can hear the tips snapping off. This is an 8B pencil. It's really soft. You've got to be careful. But this is what I'm after. I really, really like this effect. And you can see that dark appearing. And if you could catch it in the light, you would see all the directional lines of my backwards and forwards of this sketching very quickly. And I want that dark shadow caused by his arms next to his body and the number plate. Because it's like the shadow by his collar. And you can see there now, that's really looking good. And as you come down, like I say, I'm just graduating it out a little bit. I'm not pressing on as hard now. And it fills in and just makes a void, like an empty black void. And again, coming off to the side. The hand underneath the shirt. The same on this side, just darkening that little bit down. But the most intense is that centre. And then you can just literally come back in. Fill in some darks at the top. And this is how you create mood with tone. I hope you've enjoyed this. This has been an absolute joy. And this is the bonus of doing each one of these videos. There's no one's the same. No two are the same, sorry. And so you'll have great different experiences creating art. And every drawing is a challenge. So now I'm increasing that dark underneath his neck ever so slightly, right where the top of the plate is underneath his chin. I can just come down a little bit. Final bits. Sharpen up that pencil just so that I can increase those darks in those windows. And down the bottom there. Now, 2B pencil back in just for some shadows up the side. Final little highlights. Little touch on his lip. Side of his chin. Again, just gently filling in those little bits on the nose. The shadows off to the side. I'm really happy with that. I'm going to leave that there. I hope you've had fun. I've had an absolute blast. There's Sirius. We're going to do more Harry Potter in the future and more Harry Potter characters. The next one I think will be Bellatrix, and then we've got lots more to do after that. But anyway, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next drawing. Ta-da!